When the noise dies, the truth shows up. And if you keep ignoring what your soul's been screaming in silence, it will start running your life from the shadows. Tonight, you're going to learn how to hear it and use it to change everything. Most people think silence is empty. It isn't. Silence is a spotlight. It doesn't just remove sound. It removes your excuses, your distractions, your mask. And the moment life goes quiet, you don't just feel lonely. You feel exposed. Not because you're broken, but because your persona can't do its usual magic trick anymore. That's when the shadow steps forward, your old patterns start replaying, and even your dreams get louder. And here's the counterintuitive truth. That discomfort is not your enemy. It's your invitation. Carl Jung believed that what stays unconscious doesn't disappear. It directs your life like fate. So if you've been feeling restless at night, strangely numb during the day, or stuck in the same emotional loop, it's not because you're weak. It's because your soul is trying to speak, and you've been drowning it out with noise. The good news is, you don't need a perfect life to fix this. You need a clear method. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use silence like a mirror, how to spot the symbols, how to face the shadow without shame, and how to turn pain into meaning, fast, practical, and real. And once you see what's been hiding behind the noise, you'll never hear quiet the same way again. You know that second when everything goes quiet and it almost feels too loud. No notifications, no background TV, no one needing you, no role to play. That's when your soul starts tapping you on the shoulder like, hey, you still there? Because silence doesn't just remove sound, it removes excuses. It pulls the mask off your persona without asking permission. And suddenly you feel it. That ache you've been outrunning all week, not because you're weak, but because you're human. The quiet is like a dark room where your eyes finally adjust. At first you panic, then you start seeing the outlines of truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Most people treat quiet like a punishment, but it's actually a doorway. Think of it like turning down the music in a car and hearing the engine knock. The noise was never fixing the problem. It was just hiding it. When silence shows up, it's not to shame you, it's to wake you up. You start noticing the little things, the loneliness you've been calling busy, the stress you've been calling ambition, the numbness you've been calling being chill. And here's the wild part. The quiet doesn't attack you, it just tells the truth. It says, this is what you've been carrying, and you finally feel the weight. That's where transformation begins, not in noise, but in honesty. So let's get practical. Because big ideas mean nothing if your life doesn't change. Tonight, take 10 minutes and do one brave thing. Sit with silence on purpose. Phone in another room, lights low. No multitasking. No, just one more scroll. If your mind races, good. That's your soul trying to speak in a language you forgot. Grab a notebook and write one line. What am I avoiding right now? Then write the first answer that shows up, even if it's messy or embarrassing. That answer is usually the doorway to meaning. If you want a solid guide for this kind of inner work, try Man and His Symbols, Jung, slowly, like a daily vitamin. For a lighter, modern companion, Atomic Habits can help you turn courage into action. And if you'd rather listen, put on calm instrumental music after the 10 minutes, not before, so you don't dodge the lesson. Now, don't get it twisted. Quiet can feel like standing in the cold without a coat. You might feel loneliness, or old memories, or emotions that don't have names yet. That's not a sign you're falling apart. It's a sign you're thawing out. Your soul is basically saying, finally you stopped running so I can catch up. And yeah, you'll be tempted to distract yourself again, because distraction is easy money. But courage is better. It pays interest in self-respect. Here's a small trick. When discomfort hits, don't argue with it. Just label it. Say, this is fear, Or this is grief, or this is anger, and watch how it softens. Naming something gives you truth, and truth gives you choices, and choices are how you reclaim your life. Because once the noise dies, something else shows up in the quiet, something you didn't invite, a pattern, a trigger, a repeating story you keep living like it's fate. Sometimes it even visits you through dreams, like your mind's late-night voicemail. And if you pay attention, you'll notice it's pointing to the same hidden corner every time. That corner isn't bad, but it is powerful. It's the part of you you keep pushing away, the part you don't want to admit is there. And the quieter it gets, the louder that part becomes. Not to ruin you, to reveal you. So the real question isn't, why am I uncomfortable? It's, what is this quiet trying to show me that I've been afraid to face? You don't get to vote the shadow out of your life. You can ignore it, joke about it, stay positive, stay busy, sure. But the shadow doesn't die from neglect. It gets smarter. It slips into your tone, your choices, your relationships, your spending, your cravings. It becomes the invisible hand on your steering wheel. And then one day you wake up and think, how did I end up here? Again? That again is the giveaway. Repetition is the shadow's signature. Jung basically warned, what you won't bring into consciousness shows up as fate, not because life hates you, because you keep leaving a part of you unowned. And the quiet is when the shadow clears its throat. Here's the brutal but freeing truth. Your shadow isn't just bad stuff. It's also your buried strength, your blocked courage, your locked-up desire to be real. Sometimes you call it anger, but it's actually boundary. Sometimes you call it jealousy, but it's actually a map to what you want. Sometimes you call it laziness, but it's actually burnout and unspoken grief. The shadow is like a basement, messy, dark, full of boxes you forgot you stored. And you can pretend the basement doesn't exist, but the smell still rises. That's why your persona feels exhausted. It's carrying a smile over a storm. When you stop listening to your soul, your shadow starts shouting through your habits. And suddenly, the life that looks fine feels empty, heavy, and weirdly loud inside. Let me make it simple with an example you'll recognize. You tell yourself you're chill, but you explode over something tiny. Traffic, a text, a comment. That wasn't about traffic. That was the shadow filing a complaint. Or you keep choosing the same kind of partner, same charm, same disrespect, same ending. That's not bad luck. That's unhealed truth wearing a new outfit. Or you sabotage when things go well, miss deadlines, pick fights, procrastinate. That's the shadow whispering, if I succeed, I'll be seen. And that scares me. So, here's a practical move. Write down your top 3 overreactions this month. What was I really protecting? And what did I actually need? That's shadow work without fancy words, just honest meaning. Now don't turn this into self-hate. That's a trap. Shadow work isn't you standing in court accusing yourself. It's you becoming a witness, calm, curious, and oddly compassionate, because the shadow is often a younger version of you, still waiting for safety. So you meet it like a mentor would, firm, but not cruel. Try this tonight. Set a timer for 7 minutes and finish this sentence 3 times. The part of me I don't want people to see is, then, I learned to hide it when, then, what I actually needed back then was, this is how transformation starts, by telling the truth in a room where you're not performing. And if you want a powerful companion book for that, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brené Brown, pairs well with Jung's lens because it turns shame into language you can actually use. And here's the hook that keeps people stuck. You think the shadow is your enemy, but it's more like a messenger you keep locking outside in the cold. It will knock louder. It will show up in dreams. It will leak into loneliness. Not because it wants to ruin you, because it wants to be included in your wholeness. Jung called that movement toward wholeness individuation, becoming what you really are, not what you pretend to be. And once you start noticing your shadow, you begin to notice something else too. A strange pattern in how you use people, pleasing them, needing them, fearing them. Which means the next thing you're about to face isn't just the shadow itself. It's the mirror it holds up when you're alone, when silence turns your world into a reflection. You call it loneliness, but sometimes it's just silence with the spotlight on. No audience, no errands, no jokes to hide behind, no persona to maintain. And wow, without the noise, you finally feel your own presence. Not the version you post, not the version you perform, but the real you. That's why it stings. The mirror doesn't flatter, it tells the truth. It shows you where you've been abandoning your soul little by little, where you said I'm fine when you were actually tired of pretending, where you kept busy because stillness felt like a risky neighborhood. But that mirror isn't cruel, it's honest, and honesty is mercy in disguise. Because you can't change what you refuse to see. Think of loneliness like walking into an empty house after a loud party. At first it feels awkward, like your ears are looking for something to grab. Then the quiet starts highlighting what matters, your thoughts, your dreams, your patterns. You notice the same memories replaying like a playlist you didn't choose. You notice the same cravings showing up at the same hours. You notice how you reach for your phone like it's a life raft. That's not weakness. It's your nervous system asking for safety. And here's the twist. The mirror doesn't just show pain, it shows meaning. It shows the parts of you that never got fully cared for. And if you're brave, you realize the mirror is actually an invitation. Let me give you something practical you can do without turning your life into a spreadsheet. Next time the silence hits, don't fight it. Frame it. Say, "This is my mirror time," like you're stepping into a training room. Then do the simplest ritual. Write 3 lines, what I feel, what I need, what I'm avoiding. Keep it messy, keep it real, keep it honest. No perfect grammar required. If your mind goes blank, start with, "I feel weird," and let it flow. And if reading helps you stay steady, try Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl for meaning, and The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer for perspective. If you'd rather move than write, take a 15-minute walk with no headphones, just you and the world. It'll feel uncomfortable at first, like your soul is stretching after years on the couch. That discomfort is the muscle of courage waking up. Now here's where people get tripped up. They confuse being alone with being unlovable. That's a lie your shadow loves to whisper because it keeps you needy and small. But being alone can also mean you're finally not being diluted by everyone else's opinions. It's like drinking water without stirring in everybody's flavor. And yes, you might catch yourself bargaining, "If I just get a relationship, I'll be okay." Careful, sometimes that's the persona trying to outsource self-worth. Real transformation is when you can sit with yourself and not immediately try to escape. Not because you're so spiritual, but because you've made peace with your own company. A little humor helps here. If you can't be alone with yourself, imagine how exhausting you are for other people. So you practice, you get better. You become someone you actually enjoy being. And once you start using loneliness as a mirror, you notice something else. Pain has a pattern. It shows up in the same places: your chest, your stomach, your late-night thoughts. It shows up when you remember certain names, certain moments, certain regrets. And that's not random. It's the truth trying to get your attention. Carl Jung would tell you the psyche doesn't just suffer, it communicates. Your dreams get louder, your triggers get sharper, your silence gets heavier. Not to punish you, but to point toward what needs healing. So the next step isn't to stay positive. The next step is to listen to the lesson inside the ache. Because the mirror doesn't just reflect who you are, it reveals what hurts. And in the quiet, your pain starts speaking like a teacher you can't ignore. Pain shows up like an uninvited guest, but it's rarely random. It's more like a smoke alarm than a curse. You can yank the batteries out with distraction, sure, but the smell of something burning doesn't go away. In the quiet, pain gets louder because the noise can't cover it. And that's where your soul starts speaking in plain language. Carl Jung hinted that what you avoid doesn't vanish. It returns in a different form. So your pain keeps knocking, not to ruin you, but to reveal your truth. It's pointing at the gap between your persona and your real needs. And once you see that gap, transformation becomes possible. Here's the trick: pain is honest, but it's not always polite. It doesn't tap your shoulder, it grabs your attention. It might show up as loneliness at night when the house goes quiet, or a tight chest when you're around certain people, or an old memory that hits like a wave when you least expect it. That's your shadow waving a flag like, "Hey, we left something unfinished back here." And no, you don't have to dramatize it or call yourself broken. You just have to stop treating pain like an enemy, because an enemy gets fought, but a teacher gets listened to. And the quiet is the classroom you've been dodging. Let's make this practical, because wisdom without action is just decoration. When pain hits, try this. Don't ask what's wrong with me. Ask, what is this trying to protect, and what is this trying to say? Write the answer like you're texting a friend. Simple, direct, no fancy words. Then take one small step that matches the message. If the message is, "I'm exhausted," you set a bedtime alarm like it's a meeting. If the message is, "I feel used," you practice one boundary sentence: "I can't do that today." But if the message is, "I'm ashamed," you talk to someone safe or a therapist, because secrecy feeds the shadow. And if your mind needs structure, read Man and His Symbols, Jung, slowly, one chapter at a time, like you're learning a new language of meaning. Now, pain also speaks through patterns, and patterns love repetition. You keep chasing approval, then resenting the people you tried to impress. You keep overworking, then collapsing, then calling it discipline. You keep picking the same kind of relationship, different face, same ending. That's not bad luck, that's a lesson you haven't claimed yet. Your persona wants comfort, but your soul wants growth. So pain becomes the referee, blowing the whistle when you cross your own limits. And sometimes it shows up through dreams, because your mind speaks in symbols when you won't listen in daylight. If you wake up heavy after a dream, don't shrug it off. Write the feeling down in one sentence. That sentence is often closer to truth than a whole week of overthinking. And here's the part nobody wants to hear, but everybody needs. Pain demands honesty. It forces you to admit what you miss, what you regret, what you secretly want. It exposes the deals you've made with yourself. I'll stay small if I stay safe. But safety bought with self-betrayal always gets expensive later. So when everything goes quiet and pain starts teaching, you don't run, you breathe. You name it, you notice it, you take one step toward what's real. Because every time you listen, you turn pain into meaning, and meaning into transformation. And once you've learned what pain is pointing to, you start noticing something else. There's a specific part of life you keep avoiding, like a door you refuse to open. And that door, it's exactly where we're going next. You already know the life you're avoiding, even if you won't say it out loud. It's that one decision that keeps following you like a quiet echo. It's the conversation you keep postponing because it might change everything. It's the risk you keep planning for, so you never have to take it. It's the truth you keep wrapping in jokes, so nobody notices it hurts. You can feel it most when the world goes quiet and there's nowhere to hide. That's when your soul gets close and whispers, "This is the way." And your persona immediately tries to negotiate. Later, not now, not today. But the pull doesn't stop because it's not a mood, it's a direction. And if you ignore it long enough, your loneliness starts sounding like an alarm. Picture this like a locked door in your own house. You walk past it every day, acting like it's not there. You even decorate the hallway, work, noise, distractions, busy schedules. But the door keeps leaking cold air, and you pretend it's just stress. That door is your shadow guarding a truth you're scared to meet. Not because the truth is evil, but because it's powerful. Avoidance is basically fear wearing a nice outfit, trying to look responsible. And the longer you avoid, the more your life starts to shrink around what's safe. You call it stability, but deep down, it feels like slow suffocation. That's why the quiet feels heavy. It exposes the cost of staying the same. So let's turn this into something you can actually use today. Make a list of 3 things you've been avoiding for 30 days or more. Pick the smallest one, not the most dramatic. Small wins build courage fast. If it's a hard talk, write a simple script. I need to be honest about something. If it's your health, start ridiculously easy. A 10-minute walk after dinner, no excuses. If it's your money, open a basic budget app and track spending for 1 week, just data. If it's a career move, update your resume for 20 minutes and send 1 application tonight. And if you need fuel, read The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield for resistance, and Atomic Habits for momentum. None of this is glamorous, but it's how transformation becomes real. Your future doesn't need a miracle. It needs a first step. Now here's what most people miss. Avoidance isn't just fear of failure. Sometimes it's fear of success, because success means being seen. It means you can't hide behind potential anymore. You have to live. That's when your persona starts performing extra hard, trying to look in control. But your soul doesn't care about looking good. It cares about being true. You'll notice this in your body: tight chest, restless nights, irritated mood, weird fatigue. And sometimes your dreams will get louder, like your mind is waving a flashlight in the dark. When that happens, don't dismiss it. Write 1 sentence. What did this dream make me feel? That feeling is often closer to truth than 100 overthought theories, because avoidance lives in your head, but meaning shows up in your gut. And listen, this isn't about becoming fearless. It's about becoming honest. You don't need to bulldoze your life. You need to stop betraying yourself quietly. The life calling you is usually the one where you stop acting and start choosing. Where you stop saying, "I'm fine," and start living like you matter. That's why the quiet feels like pressure. It's pushing you toward the real thing. And once you take even 1 step, you'll notice something almost funny. You were never lazy. You were protecting an image. You were trying to keep the persona intact so nobody questioned your story. But the next level of your life demands something deeper than image. It demands that you stop performing and start becoming. You can be successful and still feel hollow, and that's the scariest kind of silence, because on the outside everything looks fine, maybe even impressive. But inside, your soul feels like it's living in a rented body. That's what happens when your persona becomes your full-time job. You start managing impressions instead of building a life. You smile when you're drained. You agree when you're resentful. You post when you're lonely. And nobody calls you out because you look put together. So you keep performing, and you slowly forget what real feels like. Then the quiet shows up and you realize you've been acting so long you don't know the script anymore. That moment isn't failure, it's a wake-up call for transformation. Think of your persona like a suit you wear to survive. At first it protects you, helps you fit in, gets you through the room. But if you never take it off, you start sweating in your own life. You become allergic to honesty, because honesty might cost you approval. So you keep being nice when you actually need a boundary. You keep being strong when you actually need rest. You keep being low maintenance when you're quietly begging to be seen. That's not maturity, that's emotional debt. And debt always comes due, usually at night in loneliness, when the world goes quiet. That's when your shadow shows up and says, "So, are we ever going to be real?" Here's how you start becoming, without turning this into a dramatic identity crisis. Pick one place in your life where you perform the most: work, family, friends, dating. Then pick one tiny truth you can practice there, like a warm-up rep at the gym. Something like, "I need a minute," or "I'm not up for that," or "I actually disagree." You don't have to go nuclear. You just have to stop lying in small ways. Because small lies train you to abandon yourself, and small truths train you to come home. If you struggle with people-pleasing, read Boundaries, Cloud and Townsend, or Set Boundaries, Find Peace, Nedra Glover Tawwab. And if you want courage with a backbone, the courage to be disliked is surprisingly clear and practical. This is how you turn truth into a lifestyle, not a mood. Now let's talk about why performance is so addictive. Because performance gets rewarded fast. Likes, praise, you're so strong, you're so reliable. It's quick dopamine, and it feels safer than vulnerability. But the cost is sneaky. You stop asking what you want. You stop trusting your own signals. You start living by other people's expectations like they're your commandments. And then your dreams get weird. Your body gets tense. Your patience gets thin. That's your system saying, "We're out of alignment." You can't fake alignment. You can only build it. And alignment starts when you stop acting and start choosing, because choosing is where meaning lives, not in pleasing, not in proving. Here's a simple test you can run this week. Before you say yes to anything, pause for 2 seconds and ask, "Am I performing right now?" If the answer is yes, ask the next question. What am I afraid will happen if I'm honest? That fear is usually the doorway to your next level of growth. Maybe you're afraid they'll leave. Maybe you're afraid they'll judge you. Maybe you're afraid you'll disappoint them, and that old shadow story will light up again. But here's the truth. Anyone who only loves your performance doesn't actually know you. And anyone who punishes your honesty is teaching you what their love costs. So the quiet becomes a gift again. It shows you where your life is real and where it's rented. And once you see that, you're ready for the next step, the way your soul speaks in symbols when words aren't enough. When your soul can't get your attention in daylight, it starts sending messages in code. That's why your dreams can feel random but somehow personal. A hallway you can't leave, a door you can't open, a voice you can't answer. Jung would tell you that the psyche speaks through symbols, because symbols bypass your defenses. Your persona can argue with facts, but it can't outsmart a feeling. So the message arrives as an image, a pattern, a coincidence that hits too close. And you feel it in your chest before you understand it in your head. That's not woo-woo. That's your inner world trying to restore balance. Because the shadow doesn't just hide in darkness, it hides in the parts you won't name. And in silence, symbols get louder. Think of symbols like your mind's sticky notes. They show up where you'll see them, in repeating situations, recurring triggers, familiar endings. You keep meeting the same type of person and calling it chemistry. You keep getting close to success and suddenly losing energy like a phone at 2%. You keep feeling loneliness even when you're around people, which is a symbol all by itself. Your life becomes a language, and your patterns are the vocabulary. Jung loved this idea. What's unconscious doesn't stay quiet. It acts. So the symbol isn't the problem. It's the clue. It's the map your soul uses when your logic keeps taking detours. And once you start noticing symbols, you stop feeling cursed and start feeling informed. Because information is power, and power is the beginning of transformation. Let's make this useful right now, not just interesting. For the next 7 days, track 3 things like a detective, not like a judge. 1. Your strongest emotional spikes: anger, sadness, envy, shame. 2. The moments you feel numb or suddenly tired. 3. Any dream you remember, even one image. Write it in your notes app in plain language. Felt tight chest after that call, or dreamed about missing a train. Then ask one simple question. What is this symbol trying to protect or reveal? Missing a train might mean fear of falling behind, or fear of arriving where you said you wanted to go. A locked door might mean a boundary you never learned to set. A flood might mean emotions you've been holding back with your persona like a dam. This isn't about being mystical, it's about getting honest with truth. And yeah, your brain will try to clown you at first. It'll say, it's just a dream, or stop overthinking, or you're being dramatic. That's your defense system trying to keep the old story running. But here's the thing. The symbol repeats because the lesson repeats. If you keep ignoring the smoke alarm, it'll keep screaming. So instead of arguing, you get curious. You treat your inner life like a friend leaving you hints, not like an enemy trying to embarrass you. If you want a strong guide for this, Jung's Man and His Symbols is a classic starting point. And if you prefer modern tools, a simple dream journal practice from the artist's way can help you access meaning without getting lost. Symbols don't demand perfection, they demand attention. Now here's the part that changes everything. Symbols often point to the cost of the mask. If your dreams are full of being chased, maybe you're running from a truth you don't want to admit. If your dreams are full of performing or being exposed, maybe your persona is exhausted. If your dreams are full of old rooms or childhood places, the shadow might be asking for closure. And in daily life, if you keep attracting the same problems, the symbol is screaming, look at the pattern, not the people. That's hard, because it puts responsibility back in your hands. But it's also empowering, because it means you're not helpless. You're unconscious in one area, and unconscious can become conscious. That's the whole game. Because the more you understand the symbols, the clearer your next step becomes. And the next step is facing the thing that keeps you trapped, the mask you've been wearing to survive. Let's be real, the mask works. It gets you respect, attention, peace, sometimes even love, at least on the surface. It helps you avoid conflict, avoid judgment, avoid awkward conversations. But the mask also has a price tag, and it never stops charging interest. Jung called this social face the persona, and it's useful until it becomes your prison. Because when you wear it too long, you stop knowing where the mask ends, and you begin. You start reacting automatically instead of choosing consciously. And the worst part, people applaud the mask while your soul feels unseen. That's when the quiet hits and the silence feels heavy, because there's no audience to perform for. That's the cost. A life that looks good, but doesn't feel true. Picture the mask like holding a beach ball underwater. You can do it for a while, especially if you're strong and disciplined, but your arms shake, your breathing gets shallow, your smile gets forced, and the moment you get tired, that ball explodes upward in the most inconvenient way. That's why you randomly snap at someone you love. That's why you randomly lose motivation right when things get serious. That's why you feel loneliness even inside a relationship, because the real you isn't actually there. The mask keeps you safe from rejection, but it also keeps you away from intimacy. It's like trying to be loved while wearing armor. Sure, you won't get hurt as easily, but you also won't get held. And your shadow, the parts you hide, starts leaking out through sarcasm, resentment, and self-sabotage. So how do you take the mask off without blowing up your life? You do it gradually, like letting your eyes adjust when you walk into a dark room. Start with one area where you want to be more real: work, family, friendships, dating. Then choose one truth upgrade you can practice this week. For example, instead of "no worries," try "I'm a little overwhelmed today." Instead of "I don't care," try "that actually matters to me." Instead of over-explaining, try one clean boundary. "I can't do that, but I can do this." And if you need training wheels, write 3 sentences in advance for your hardest situation. That's not fake. That's preparation, the same way athletes practice before the game. Because the goal isn't to be brutally honest, it's to be consistently true. Now, here's where the mask gets sneaky. It pretends it's you. It says, "This is just my personality," when it's really a coping strategy. It says, "I'm just independent," when it's really fear of needing anyone. It says, "I'm just joking," when it's really pain avoiding truth. And that's why your body starts keeping score. Tight jaw, shallow breath, chronic tension. Your nervous system can't relax in a life that requires constant acting, so the silence becomes your body's chance to speak up. You feel the emptiness, the fatigue, the weird sadness, and you think something is wrong with you. But sometimes nothing is wrong. Something is misaligned. Your soul isn't broken, it's tired of living behind glass, and the longer you ignore that, the louder the symbols get, especially in your dreams. Here's a practical exercise that cuts through the fog fast. Make 2 lists, what people think I am and what I actually am. Keep it simple, 5 items each. Maybe people think you're easygoing, but you're actually anxious. Maybe people think you're confident, but you're actually terrified of being exposed. Maybe people think you're strong, but you're actually exhausted from carrying everything alone. Now circle 1 item from the second list that you've been hiding the most. That's your next truth to integrate, not all at once, but step by step. If you want a book that helps you put language on this, Daring Greatly, Brené Brown, is gold. It teaches you vulnerability without turning it into weakness. And once you start integrating, something wild happens. Your relationships get fewer, but realer. Because the mask doesn't just affect you, it affects your whole life. It changes who you attract, what you tolerate, what you think you deserve. It turns your life into a stage, and stages don't feel like home. So when you take the mask off, even a little, you feel exposed at first. That's normal. That's your system recalibrating. But then you feel relief, like finally unclenching a fist you didn't realize was tight. And that relief is a signal. You're closer to truth, closer to meaning, closer to yourself, which sets up the next leap. It's not enough to understand. You have to own your patterns, because knowledge is nice, but ownership is where transformation actually happens. Understanding can feel like progress, because it sounds smart and it feels clean. You read the book, you watch the video, you nod like, yep, that's me. And for a moment, the silence inside you feels lighter. But then life happens. Someone triggers you, and boom, you're back in the same loop. That's when you realize a painful truth. Insight isn't ownership. Insight is seeing the map. Ownership is walking the road. Your persona loves insight because it lets you feel evolved without changing anything. But your soul wants something deeper, consistency. Because real transformation isn't a breakthrough moment, it's a new pattern you live. And patterns only change when you stop explaining and start choosing. Let's put it in everyday terms. It's like knowing exactly how a gym workout works, but never picking up the weights. You can quote the routine, debate the science, even buy the fancy shoes, but your body won't change until your actions do. Same with healing. You can understand your shadow for years and still be ruled by it. You can name your childhood wounds and still bleed on people who didn't cut you. You can know you're people-pleasing and still say yes while resenting everyone. That's why ownership matters. It's the moment you stop saying, "This is how I am," and start saying, "This is what I do," because what I do can change. Who I am feels fixed. And healing begins the second you make the pattern movable. Here's the ownership move. And it's simple enough to use today. When you catch yourself in a familiar loop, say one sentence, "This is my pattern." Not, "They made me." Not, "Life is unfair." Not, "I'm just like this." Just, "This is my pattern." That's power. Then ask, what is this pattern protecting me from feeling? Maybe it's protecting you from rejection, so you cling. Maybe it's protecting you from shame, so you attack. Maybe it's protecting you from loneliness, so you stay in chaos just to feel something. Write the answer in plain words. No fancy psychology, because the simpler you make it, the more you can actually act on it. Now add a second step, the replacement behavior. Ownership isn't just "I see it." Ownership is "I do something different." So you choose one tiny new action that interrupts the loop. If you normally text back instantly to keep someone, you wait 10 minutes and breathe. If you normally explode, you take a sip of water and say, "Give me a second." Oh, if you normally avoid, you do the smallest version of the hard thing. Send the email, book the appointment, write the first paragraph. And if you want a clean framework, use the if-then method. If I feel triggered, then I pause and name the feeling. This turns emotional chaos into a plan. That's not robotic, that's wise. It's how you protect your future self. And over time, those small choices become identity. Not the persona you perform, but the person you become. And listen, your mind will try to bargain. It'll say, "But I had a good reason," and sometimes you did. But ownership isn't about blame, it's about control. You can have a good reason and still have a destructive habit. You can have a painful past and still be responsible for your next move. That's the line between victimhood and power. Jung would tell you that what stays unconscious runs your life like fate. Ownership is bringing it into the light, then building a new response with courage. And when you start owning your patterns, the world starts changing around you. Not magically, but logically. Because you're no longer reacting on autopilot. You're choosing with intention. And that sets up the final shift. The quiet isn't just a feeling, it's a test of integrity. When everything goes quiet, you find out who's really driving your life. Not your boss, not your partner, not your parents, not your past. You. Because in the noise, you can hide inside performance and excuses. But in silence, there's no crowd to impress and no story to sell. It's just you and your own standards. And that's why quiet can feel uncomfortable. It's a mirror with a heartbeat. It asks, do your private choices match your public image? That question is integrity, and integrity is the foundation of meaning. Your persona wants to look good, your soul wants to be true. And the gap between those two is where anxiety, shame, and loneliness love to live. Integrity isn't some perfect, saint-like thing. It's not about never messing up. It's about being aligned more often than not. It's choosing the hard right over the easy wrong when nobody's watching. It's telling the truth when a lie would be convenient. It's keeping a promise to yourself, not just to other people. Because, let's be honest, most people are great at showing up for everyone else. But showing up for yourself, that's where the real battle is. That's where the shadow whispers, "Skip it, you can start tomorrow." That's where your old self begs for comfort and your future self begs for courage. And the quiet is the arena where that choice gets made. So here's a practical test you can run tonight, simple but powerful. Ask yourself, what do I do when no one can reward me for it? Do you still move your body? Do you still read? Do you still pray or reflect? Do you still treat people with kindness when there's nothing to gain? Do you still respect your own boundaries when nobody will clap for you? Pick one private habit that would make you proud if it became your identity. Something small, a 20-minute walk, a glass of water before coffee, 5 pages of a book, 10 minutes of journaling. If you want books that build integrity fast, read The Compound Effect, Darren Hardy, and Atomic Habits. They make discipline feel doable. Then track it for 7 days, not to punish yourself, but to build trust with yourself. Because self-trust is the quiet confidence your soul has been begging for. Now, integrity also shows up in what you tolerate. In quiet moments, you remember the texts you shouldn't have answered, the disrespect you laughed off, the boundary you swallowed. You remember the times you said yes just to keep peace, and then paid for it with resentment. That's the cost of living out of alignment. And you don't fix it by becoming cold or selfish. You fix it by becoming clear. Clear means you stop negotiating your worth. Clear means you stop betraying yourself in small ways. And each time you choose clarity, your persona loses a little power and your real self gains it. That's transformation. Quiet, steady, undeniable. And here's the deeper layer. Integrity is what makes your inner life stop screaming. When your actions match your values, your nervous system relaxes. You sleep better, you react less, You feel safer inside your own mind because you're not constantly cleaning up the mess of your own contradictions. That's why the quiet becomes less scary over time. It stops feeling like emptiness and starts feeling like peace. And peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of alignment. So when everything goes quiet, your soul speaks loudest, but only if you're willing to listen and respond, because the quiet doesn't just reveal the truth, it asks you to live it. And once you live it, you're ready for the next step, pulling all of this into a hook and introduction that hits fast and lands deep. Now it's on you, because none of this matters if it stays as interesting. The quiet isn't just a mood you stumble into at night. It's a doorway. And every time life goes quiet, you're being offered the same choice. Go back to the noise, or finally listen to your soul. So here's what I want you to do. Simple, practical, real. Tonight, take 10 minutes of intentional silence. Phone away, no music, no scrolling. Write 3 lines, what I feel, what I need, what I'm avoiding. Then pick one action so small you can't argue with it. One boundary, one honest message, one appointment, one walk, one page, one step. That's how you stop understanding and start owning. That's where transformation begins. And when the shadow shows up, through a trigger, a craving, a sudden wave of loneliness or a strange dream, don't panic. Get curious. Ask, what is this protecting? What is this trying to teach me? Because pain isn't proof you're failing. Pain is proof you're waking up. Jung's point wasn't to make you overthink yourself. It was to help you become whole. Not perfect, whole. So let me challenge you with something uncomfortable, in a good way. Where are you still performing? Where is your persona winning while your soul is losing? What truth do you already know, but keep postponing because it would change your life? And if everything went quiet right now, no distractions, no audience, who would you be forced to become? Drop your answer in the comments. Don't make it pretty, make it honest. Tell me, what does your silence keep trying to say? And if this hit you in the chest a little, share it with someone who's been pretending they're fine. Finally, if you want more guidance like this, more clarity, more depth, and real tools you can apply right away, subscribe to Mind's Silent Echo and turn on notifications, because we're going deeper into the mind, the shadow, and the kind of growth that actually changes your life.